I'm honored to be here with all this distinguished delegation. Last time I was here was 2 years ago, in 2017. And when I'm trying to recall what I was saying at that time, I'm happy that Egypt has delivered on its promise. And me and my colleagues and my team at the central bank and the banking system who are present here, we're very happy with the progress that happened so far. We are happy that we have delivered the promise to our people who always have felt inside them the potential, but were always questioning why it's not happening. And we knew inside our souls that this economy has a lot to offer and has not been treated fairly before. So with the change in the policy, and we've been able to face the reality and confront our issues truly and tackle them boldly and honestly. And we've been very transparent with our community and with the authorities. We believe that disclosure is very important. And we have disclosed to everybody and the decision makers in the country what the real issues were and how we have to manage them in a different manner. And it worked well. And I'm sure a lot of investors here who are following Egypt can see what happened. And as I said before, it was not an opportunistic plan. We were working on the long term. And we are observing in front of our eyes all the time the fundamentals. And we're happy to see that the fundamentals in our economy has turned around so quickly and dramatically that it positioned Egypt in a different way. It restored stability. And today I can say, after years of anxiety and worry about what's going to happen, today I'm really feel comfortable that our economy is safe. We have created the foundation for various economic agents now to operate in a proper manner. And I'm happy to see sectors in our economy, important sectors, are delivering in a very different way. Maybe the results are not there on our balance of payments, but they will come. I just had a discussion with our Minister of Petroleum yesterday, and I was telling him I had the Chief Executive Officer of ExxonMobil in my office, and he was telling me that ExxonMobil, for the first time in the history of Egypt, is coming in the upstream business and has been allocated 3 concessions, and other major American petroleum companies. What we've seen in this industry also is really very encouraging. The gas fields that we very quickly have been able to develop with our international partners have provided Egypt with a great resource, great economic resource, and a great resource for stability as well. And after having been relying on a lot of importation of gas, despite the very ambitious plans to rebuild Egyptian infrastructure, what happened in the last 5 years in rebuilding Egyptian infrastructure did not happen over the last 40 years. If you visit Egypt or you follow various industries, the power generation capacity, the transmission capacity, the distribution capacity, the housing and infrastructure capacity, the roads and the highways that have been built, 7,000 kilometers of highways, what has been done. And despite all this, we've been able to maintain economic stability, bring down inflation to levels that are historical for us, and it will continue to help us achieve the targets of the central bank in terms of inflation. In the central bank, we have developed very much as well. And this development has come natural from our vision to develop this institution that we start working on its structure change since 2004. And it is the testimony of the IMF, and they said, this is a central bank. It's one of the best we've ever seen. We have learned from the lessons, and I said we are seasoned, we have seen crisis, and we learn from the lessons, and we're tackling that. And we're always trying to be preemptive and forward-looking. We're never back-looking, and we're never satisfied. So there is a foundation now whereby Egyptian economy can grow. Cheap labor, educated labor, land, energy, infrastructure, market, a large market. And I'm happy to have seen a lot of major economic indicators rebounding very strongly. Of course, the competitiveness of our currency has helped. But now we are working on structural reform more aggressively with the government. The government's mandate and plan that has been discussed in the economic cabinet is very comprehensive in order to improve investor environment, in order to facilitate matters for industry, the bureaucracy, cutting red tape. We have been able to improve the cost of input for industry over the last month. We've been able to change the way we are allocating land to have industry take off in a big way. We are working on the Egyptian ports across Egypt. 8 ports have been revamped. We have built the new Suez Canal in 1 year. And this is the capability of our country. We are happy that we've been able also to achieve the confidence of the international markets. And we thank the international markets for advising us before the reform program, when we visited investors and we spoke with them. And we took their concerns and their ideas and their recommendations into account. Because we said we are going always to implement policies that the markets can understand. Of course, we have been relying more on regaining the confidence of the domestic market. The domestic market has given Egypt and the banking system the largest part of foreign exchange inflows that came into the system. Black market disappeared, and foreign exchange flows have flowed into the system, and Egyptian investors regained confidence in their investment in the domestic currency. And now, over the last period, we have been relaxing interest rates as a result of the impact on inflation that took place and our expectations for future inflation. We have built resilient reserves that never happened in the history of Egypt. We have rebuilt the capability of the banking system in foreign currency and its liquidity. We have worked over years for strengthening our supervision and regulations. We've worked with everybody in the world. We worked with the ECB. We worked with 6 central banks in Europe in building that. We worked with the Federal Reserve experts on building monetary policy, with the ECB senior economists in rebuilding and reshaping our monetary policy organization over years. And for the first time, we put a commitment on ourselves in terms of the inflation target. And we've been able to earn the confidence of the community and the authorities that gave us the opportunity to continue strengthening the independence of the central bank. The independence of the central bank is not a decision. You can build it over time by building credibility, by building successes, and by building confidence. And this we have been able to achieve. We've been able to achieve a major change in the culture of how people and cabinet perceives things. There is now appetite to do more because success brings more success, and success brings confidence. And we are using the credibility and the capital of the central bank of the previous year achievements in order to continue to do more. The banking system is strong and resilient. We've been working on the banking system's reforms since 2004. And today we have a very strong supervision and regulatory division. And we continue to improve upon that. We have a new banking act that has been approved by the cabinet 2 weeks ago. It's an act that has been derived from international standards. We worked with international legal firms, and we worked with the World Bank and the IMF and domestic legal experts in order to put this act together. The purpose of this act is to make sure that we bring more competitiveness to the banking system. Egypt still has tremendous potential in bringing financial services to its economy and to the market. We have a banking system that's highly liquid with a loan-to-deposit ratio of around 44%. We have strong capital ratios and capital basis for the banking system. We have been able to reduce non-performing loans to less than 5%. So we are trying now to bring financial services to the market, and the central bank now is leading a major effort for digitization of financial services, for technology, for financial technology, and we have a major program for financial inclusion and payments. We thought it is very important that we have this embraced by the highest authorities in the country. So we have the president of the country heading the National Payment Council, and we've drafted a national payment strategy where many ministers and ministries are involved. And this effort is very important to succeed. It needs a lot of teamwork. And we've been able to line up teamwork and support for this initiative. We've been working for 2 years on the national payment strategy implementation, and we have achieved a lot of strides. We believe there is a lot of potential for this economy to provide employment opportunities per se, as such. And if financial services, we have a penetration of 32%, we believe there's a lot of upside that we need to reap. Now that we have our currency issues behind, now that we have a strong and resilient banking system that's quite liquid, and now we have a strong regulator and supervisory function, and we have seasoned banks, and we have a law that will bring more governance to the banking system and the central bank. A new licensing regime, a new consumer protection regime, and what have you. We are very optimistic of the future. And as we have promised before and we delivered, we continue to promise our people in the country and our international partners and investors that Egypt is going to give for them a good proposition in terms of growth and good investment and a good risk return on their investments. I prefer to open the stage for questions and to answer anything that could be on your mind. And we have everybody here also that can help us with addressing any questions on mind.
Thank you, Governor. So I'm getting the questions through the iPad, and I'll be asking them from here. The first one that came in was actually, you've had a successful IMF program. Are you thinking of a follow-up one? And if so, what would be the objectives of a new agreement with the IMF?
What do you think? Do you want us to have another program? Our first program has achieved its objectives and more. Our government has been very happy with the first program, despite there were resistance at the beginning. And our government is eager to continue using the expertise of the IMF in one way or the other. And there are discussions going on about that. So this is my answer to the question.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And since we have lots of investors in the room, there's people asking about debt, and in particular, someone saying, so Egypt has made a lot of progress in terms of fiscal risk, but they wonder what your view is on the significant amount of short-term external debt Egypt has, and what the risks are in this respect.
Okay. We have very little short-term debt, so this information is not really accurate. Our long-term debt is over 87% of our external debt. The 13% portion of our short-term debt are predominantly deposits from Arab neighboring countries that have been with the central bank for the last 6 to 7 years, and they continue to be renewed. We don't perceive them as short-term as such. But even if you take this into account, our external debt is long-term, mostly bilateral loans, ECAs, and they range between 10 and 59 years long. For instance, our new underground projects, the new extensions, we have loans from Asia for 59 years. Our refinery projects, the expansions in 3 refineries, which is a major project, also has long-term loans. Our desalination plants and our fertilizer plants, they enjoy long-term financing. Our short-term loans are our short-term obligations were historical, and they were received a long time ago. Also, we've been able to tap the capital markets over the last 3 years, and we've done this very well. Our idea was that we prefer to extend the maturity of our debt. We've reached up to 30 years of maturity for our capital markets, and we've reduced the short-term exposure on the central bank and the government. So the capital market now has become a good investor opportunity, because our idea is that Egypt becomes a significant player in the capital markets. We want our issues to have depth and have more secondary market trading. So we continue to approach our capital markets as such. And our capital market issues were long-term. And for pricing, to us, it's very good. And we think I think of those issues are very close to FDIs, because even in FDIs, the IRR requested by investors is much higher. So I think we've done well on this front too. So I think our plan in terms of our external debt structure has been quite wise and conservative.
Thank you, Governor. And a question that is, I think, right up your alley. Someone's asking if you can say a few words about the inflation outlook in coming months, and how does monetary policy respond to that?
We have put our first inflation target that was for the last quarter of 2018 at 13%, and I think we've done a good job there. And though this was our first time for ourselves, we now have targets for ourselves, inflation to reach 9% plus or minus 3 towards the end of 2020. And I am sure that our monetary policy division will be able to achieve that.
Very good. And maybe from the remaining questions, let me select one that I think it's very linked to the type of issues we've discussed across regions, which is the growth question and what, from a more medium-term perspective, in your opinion, what are the main things Egypt should be looking into to make sure that the high growth rates you're seeing now really persist into the future and they become your, let's say, your potential growth?
Our upside, Egypt needs more hospitals. Egypt needs more schools. Egypt needs more products and industry, and the Egyptian economy is growing. So Egypt has a very substantial young population that can deliver and work. So the economy is witnessing a stage that's very different from many economies in the world today. So I can mention many industries, but at large, Egypt is in need to develop services industry, logistical industry, shipping and transshipment industries. Needs to develop extensions of petrochemical industries and make some backward integration and more forward integration for industry. We are looking at major petrochemical plant projects funded by investors internationally. So the government and the private sector are studying investments in various industry, and there is still a demand. And it's proven that there is a demand is that still our multinational companies and our domestic companies still find Egypt a preferred market to sell their products rather than to export. So we have General Motors, and we have BMWs, and we have the Mercedes. They prefer to sell the products domestically because still there is growing demand and there is ample room for the products.
Thank you. We have a bit of time left, and if you don't mind, I'll go back to a quite specific question that I think also comes from an audience that is very focused on fixed income. They want to know what your thoughts are on the high share of foreign ownership in the local bond market, which is something that we see across EMs, and would be very interesting to hear what you think in the case of Egypt.
The Ministry of Finance is coming with more issues in terms of long-term bond issues. And the foreign investors have been having more appetite into the 5-year and 10-year bond issues. I think the Ministry of Finance is happy with the levels of interest rate and will start doing more of long-term bond issues. Right now, some of our banks are very happy with their holdings and they don't want to give it up. But we are trying to deepen this market, and now with the levels of interest rate, there is more opportunity to convert part of the short-term treasury bills into longer-term bonds, and this will provide more opportunity for investors who want to lock their returns.
Perfect. Thank you, Governor. It's been an honor to have you here,
Thank you.
and we hope to have you back in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm very